There was a very disturbing Supreme Court ruling this week. It was a 6-3 ruling, all the conservatives against all the liberals. And it was in a case called Mahmoud v. Taylor. And basically, the bottom line is that the conservatives on the court say that parents who don't want their kids reading books in school with LGBTQ characters and themes can just opt out due to their religious beliefs. And the implications of that decision are staggering. So basically, conservative parents sued this school district in Maryland, the Montgomery County Board of Education. They sued. They're Muslims and Catholics, conservative, both of them. They didn't want to expose their kids to the reality that they live in a pluralistic society with people who may not believe what they believe or love who they think you should love or fit a particular gender mold. Right? So they said the Montgomery County Board of Education was undermining their faith by reading books in class that treated same-sex people, gay people and trans people as normal. And in fact, look at what the decision actually says. This is the majority's ruling here. I think this is Sam Alito writing this. Yeah, let me pull this up here. So they read books in school that have gay characters. But look at this. The books are unmistakably normative. Yeah, they treat gay people as normal. They are designed to present certain values and beliefs as things to be celebrated, and certain contrary values and beliefs as things to be rejected. Jesus. Take, for example, the message sent by the books concerning same-sex marriage. And this goes on for a while, saying they had a gay couple in one of the books, and the storybooks present same-sex weddings as occasions for great celebration and suggest that the only rubric for determining whether a marriage is acceptable is whether the individuals concerned love each other. That's the reason Alito is mad. Now, the book in question that he is talking about has a character who has a same-sex wedding. You know who celebrates that in the book? The dude's family and friends. It didn't say, hey, reader, you better be happy for us too. No, it's like the dude's family is happy that he's getting married. But because they didn't present, I don't know, the alternative side, they didn't present the Westboro Baptist Church protesting at the wedding. Alito's like, this is not fair and balanced the way I like it. Right? In Sonia Sotomayor's dissent, she actually said, this decision says that being exposed to the very idea that LGBTQ people exist. Look at this. Whoops. Let me pull this back for a second. Yeah, look at what Sotomayor wrote in her dissent. Exposing students to the message that LGBTQ people exist and that their loved ones may celebrate their marriages and life events, the majority says, is enough to trigger the most demanding form of judicial scrutiny. What basically, that's judge speak for what the hell are you people doing? And the irony is that even if certain books were approved by the Board of Education in Maryland, in that county, for use in the classroom, we don't know how the books were being used or how often they were read or what conversations occurred because of them. Like the SCOTUS conservatives, the Supreme Court conservatives have a habit of inventing facts to fit the conclusion they want to achieve. And they refuse to see like the legal record of what happened to establish any of that. They have a history of doing this. But the bottom line now is that this decision lets parents remove their kids from the classroom if something they're going to be taught might offend their religious sensibilities. Now, how does that get implemented? I have no idea. Like, how can a school district know what religious beliefs everyone has? How can public education even occur if parents have veto power over every aspect of every lesson? Like, is every teacher supposed to send out like the curriculum? This is what we're going to do this week. This is what we're going to read. And by the way, if you have a problem with it, because I mean, it's not like the parents have read any of these books, but if you have a problem with it, you let me know and you can remove your kids from the classroom. And by the way, if we live in a really rural area where a lot of the parents might be of the same religion, then I don't know, a majority of the classroom will be out of class. And now I can't even teach the class because most of the kids are gone. Like, you cannot let parents micromanage what happens in the classroom. That's what the Board of Education is for. Their job is to say, yeah, we looked at the curriculum, we approve it, and that's it. It's bad enough we allow parents to opt kids out of like sex education, but like in some cases, maybe there's reason to take kids out. But reading a book that does not tell them you must love gay marriage, like you've got to be kidding me. It's ridiculous. And Sam Alito actually made it sound like he actually has a solution for this. Check this out. This is what Alito wrote in his decision. Uh, the petitioners have shown that there are, here we go, specifically, until all appellate review in this case is completed. So, until, if you want to argue this, go for it. But for now, the board should be ordered to notify the parents in advance whenever one of the books in question or any other similar book is to be used in any way and allow them to have their children excused from that instruction. Like, there's no feasible way to actually do this. I appreciate what Vox's Ian Millhiser wrote about this. And I want to show you that here. Where did it go? Here we go. This is what Ian wrote summarizing this case. The upshot is that a school may also need to warn parents if a teacher wants to read from a Harry Potter book, because those books are about magic, or if they want to teach a lesson about a famous pacifist like Martin Luther King Jr. Schools may even need to warn parents if any of their children's teachers are women, just in case a parent objects on religious grounds to women having achievements outside of the home. If anything that happens in a school might violate your religious sensibilities, then it's no good anymore. And that's ridiculous. Like, there is no telling which parts of an education could offend someone just because religious conservatives are offended by damn near everything all the time. Right? And that said, the way the decision is written, I don't know, having gay characters alone or trans characters alone may not be reason enough to object. Like, apparently the line is that you're not allowed to celebrate their identities. So what happens if there's a novel with the gay character, but you don't draw attention to it? Or there's a trans character, but no one talks about it? Is that okay or is that not okay? Can a religious parent say, what, you acknowledge the existence of trans people? I object. I'm going to remove my kid from class. Like, and what counts as celebrating who they are? Because what happens if you're reading a novel and a character is trying to come to grips with the fact that they are gay and they're going through all the emotions you go through when you realize that? Does that count as celebrating it or advocating for it? Who knows? And what if some characters in a book are happy for their gay or trans friends, as any decent friend would be? I have no clue. Like, the ruling is so vague that the only way to avoid any sort of legal entanglement is to just never use any books that have LGBTQ characters. Just erase them out of the curriculum, which, again, that's kind of what social conservatives want. And so when this case was being considered, one thing that I was pleased to see is that a number of church-state separation groups called out why this decision would be a problem. So, for example, this is from Americans United for Separation of Church and State. This is what they wrote to the Supreme Court before the decision was handed down, urging them not to do the thing they eventually did. This opt-out system sought by petitioners would harm religious freedom in at least three ways. It would undermine public schools' ability to foster tolerance, ultimately leading to a less tolerant citizenry. Second, it would stigmatize the kids who are not opted out and serve to divide students along religious lines. Third, it would force many schools to tailor their curricula to the religious views of some parents. Yeah, those would be a problem. They also said this, where did it go? Right here. There we go. In the real world, of course, there is no opting out. Exposure to contrary ideas, even ones we vehemently disagree with, is simply a fact of life in a pluralistic society. But if petitioners succeed, public school students would never be exposed to ideas they disagree with. Instead, they could simply be pulled out of classrooms anytime a conflict arose. I mean, yes, those are legitimate things to be concerned about. After the decision was handed down, this is what AU said in response. Rather than implement an unworkable system of opt-outs to certain books or lessons, public schools are more likely to strike content from the curriculum that could be challenged, which is the ultimate goal of the Christian Nationalist backing this case. What's next? Objecting to books with single moms? Demanding opt-outs from students learning about evolution? Objecting to LGBTQ plus teachers present in the classroom? LGBTQ plus students? We need a national recommitment to church-state separation. Our public schools and our democracy depend on it. There was also a similar amicus brief written by a group of atheists, the American Atheists, the Secular Student Alliance, and the Secular Coalition for America. And they argued that all kinds of subjects would suffer if the plaintiffs got their way. Check out what they wrote here. A young Earth creationist parent may object to world history lessons that examine or even acknowledge any events occurring more than approximately 6,000 years ago, or object to their child taking high school physics because they would introduce them to principles that undergird radiocarbon dating, which again show that the world existed more than 6,000 years ago. A Christian Scientist parent may object to instruction concerning the germ theory of disease. A Catholic parent might object to lessons on capitalism and economics as promotion of greed. This goes on. A Mormon parent might want to opt their child out of significant portions of American history courses that talk about how people migrated here because it contradicts the Book of Mormon. You get the idea. This goes on for a while. This decision could harm everybody. And after the ruling came out, this is what American Atheists said. Today's ruling will serve as fodder for the far religious right's nationwide campaign to restrict students' access to inclusive and informative materials. Approximately 90% of kids and teens in the US attend public schools, and an abundance of research has demonstrated the benefits of multicultural education and culturally responsive practices. I got one more for you. It's from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and this is what they said in their amicus brief, saying, we are worried that kids are not going to be able to read certain material. Look at this. To Kill a Mockingbird portrays Southern Baptists in a less than favorable light. So are parents going to object to that? Right? What about Lord of the Flies, or the Grapes of Wrath? They used to have biblical themes. What if they object to that? Content in Catcher in the Rye or Les Miserables could offend religious sensibilities. But then again, so could the subject matter in more or less any of Shakespeare's classics. Macbeth has witches and cesarean section birth. There's miscegenation, people who don't want to see mixed race stuff in Othello, and the Iliad and the Odyssey portray ancient Greek deities. So you can go after Charlotte's Web, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Like, you could go after everything. And after the decision, this is what the Freedom from Religion Foundation said. This ruling threatens to give any religious parent veto power over public school curricula. If this dangerous logic is carried forward, it could unravel decades of progress toward inclusive education and equal rights. It has grave ramifications for the teaching of evolution. Public schools must be grounded in facts and reality and not subject to religious censors. So all of that is so true. And this is something Sonia Sotomayor laid out in her dissent, which I wish it wasn't the dissent, but this is what she wrote. I wish this was actually the ruling itself. But look at what Sotomayor wrote. The result will be chaos for this nation's public schools. Requiring schools to provide advance notice and the chance to opt out of every lesson plan or story time that might implicate a parent's religious beliefs will impose impossible administrative burdens on schools. And the harm won't be borne by educators alone. Kids will suffer. Classroom disruptions, absences may well inflict long-lasting harm on students' learning and development. And all of that is accurate. She also said this. Where did it go? The court's ruling, in effect, thus hands a subset of parents the right to veto curricular choices long left to locally elected school boards. Because I cannot countenance the court's contortion of our precedent and the untold harms that will follow, I dissent. And she also pointed out what a lot of those other people said. Where does this slippery slope end in this case? Look at this. Books expressing implicit support for patriotism, women's rights, interfaith marriage, consumption of meat, immodest dress, countless other topics may conflict with sincerely held religious beliefs. Imagine a children's picture book that celebrates the achievements of women in history, including female scientists, politicians, astronauts, and authors. Perhaps the book even features a page that states girls can do it all. That message may be directly contrary to the religious principles that a parent wishes to instill in their child. So she knows that there's a slippery slope here. She read those amicus briefs, and she says it's not just books that are at issue here. If a teacher has on her desk a picture of her and her wife, is that advocacy? Is that celebration? Can a religious parent demand to remove their child from that classroom? There's no way to distinguish those cases from the one at hand. So it's a win for conservative bigots. It's a loss for public education. It's another blow to church state separation. Because as soon as you let religious parents dictate what their kids can and cannot learn in a public school, it hurts everybody. Like LGBTQ themed books may be first on the chopping block, but there's nothing that's safe. What about a book that talks about vaccines? What about a textbook that talks about vaccines or evolution or anything like that? Who knows what's going to happen. I was reading articles about this, and a guy named Brent Leatherwood, who's the chair of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, I hope I'm saying, yeah, Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, he gave a quotation, and this is what he said: schools are for education, not indoctrination. This is the way he was celebrating what the court decided, but he has it completely backwards. Schools were trying to educate kids, but now these religious parents get to basically get veto power over LGBTQ books. That is indoctrination. It's just religious indoctrination, and Leatherwood is okay with that. You know what I mean? This is how Christian nationalists are now dictating public policy for everybody, because they treat neutrality as oppression. That's it. That's the bottom line. The Supreme Court's right-wing majority has made it clear that neutral laws are no longer acceptable if it clashes with the religious whims of conservative bigots. One other thing about this case. In the ruling, Alito had pictures, a couple of pages of pictures from the children's book in question. And one thing I appreciated is that Sonia Sotomayor was like, before you all read this ruling, she said Alito is basically cherry picking pages. Look at the very top of this page. Because the majority selectively excerpts the book in order to rewrite its story, readers are encouraged to go directly to the source reproduced below. Basically, Alito said these people are celebrating a gay marriage, and that's not fair. And Sonia Sotomayor is like, go look at my dissent, because at the very back of it, she goes on for a while, but at the very end of this decision, she has the entire book reproduced here so people can read it and see this book is not about celebrating a same-sex wedding. That's just one element of what happens. It's really about about a child's journey. And so she posted the entire book there so everyone could read the entire thing. By the way, she did the exact same thing with, do you remember when Neil Gorsuch wrote the decision in the Kennedy case about the football coach who wanted to pray at midfield after games? Gorsuch, writing his ruling, was like, this man got fired when all he wanted to do was a quiet prayer at midfield. And Sonia Sotomayor is like, you're lying about the facts. In fact, here are pictures of him doing his fake quiet prayer, and he's surrounded by a mob of people. He wasn't fired. Like, she has to lay out how the conservatives are lying about the facts in order to make up whatever ruling they want to make up. So I don't know what happens here. Maybe the one thing I saw that I hope might be of interest after this is that, you know, all those states that are passing laws to put the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms? Is it possible that a parent could say, the commandment that says keep the Sabbath day holy, or that, you know, you can't worship any other gods before me, can a parent say that offends my religious beliefs, so I want those posters taken down? Could they now use the Supreme Court ruling to do that? I don't know the answer to that, but man, what a bit of malicious compliance that would be if this whole thing backfires. Anyway, I will pause there for a little bit. What questions do we have here before I move on? Can I remove my kid from the room if they're teaching my son American exceptionalist pseudo historical propaganda citing moral objections? If those theists can do it, why can't I? That's the question. I honestly, I know you're kind of joking, but not really. But like, no one seems to know what the lines are because the court didn't draw any clear lines. It's like they said it's about LGBTQ books, but even then it's kind of hazy. And then where does the decision apply? Does it apply to anything? Does it apply to evolution? Does it apply to Oklahoma social studies curriculum now? We have no clue. And so the only way to do this is to litigate it. But again, the conservatives didn't think through their decision. They just kind of like said, this is what we want to do. So we're doing it. You guys figure it out. It's so irresponsible. Good grief. The additional administrative burden this introduced is ridiculous. No kidding. Because, like, you know how you get kids excited about reading, especially when they're in high school and they want to be on their phones instead? It's that you don't just read classic works of literature. You mix it in with some modern books that where the characters speak like kids do today. And where maybe they're having conversations, but it's like text message to text message in the text. And it's not just, page after page of William Faulkner prose. You know what I mean? But a lot of those modern novels that kids really love, they have these things that are now objectionable. They have gay characters. You know why? Because gay people exist. And they have a trans character because trans people exist. And they are dealing with issues and conflicts in their mind because that's what kids go through. And if you can't read those books, you are undermining everybody's education. This is not one kid with dumb parents getting out of class. At some point, this could be a lot of the classes missing, so we can't even teach this book. What else we got here? Here's what we do. We make them write their beliefs down and they aren't allowed to change them later. What if they put it in a book and they called it the Bible? And then what do? Well, you just open it up to interpretation. And that's the problem, right? I mean, we have a constitution, but the Supreme Court gets to interpret that however they want. I appreciate your sarcasm. When I was teaching high school English, some parents objected to any literature portraying good versus evil, which basically meant any literature with conflict. Yikes. And again, if parents want to object, they can object. But the answer is, I don't care. This is what we're teaching. School board approved it. I'm doing it. Suck it. And I don't know what the solution is now. It's horrible. Is it just me, or are people not aware of the possible abuse and neglect parents could inflict on their queer child just because they're queer? Listen, people are not aware of a lot of things. I think if there's one thing we're learning, it's that most people are. I'm not even saying they're dumb. I'm saying they're preoccupied with other things. Maybe they work a lot of jobs. They don't have time to read up on this stuff. But a lot of people have no clue what they're doing. It's why they vote for Republicans. It's why they allow these decisions. They think this is a good decision for their kid, and it's clearly not. It's why they don't realize they're being manipulated. It's frustrating. It also is all the more reason we need to talk to our neighbors and the people close to us so that they don't make these mistakes. Thank you for that donation. Things going the way they are. Do you think we could get out of paying for wars by creating a religion that forbids paying taxes? I guess the thinking here is, hey, let's take that one to the Supreme Court. I'm not paying my taxes because I oppose where it's being used. I believe they've already ruled on that. You can't religiously object your way out of taxes. But even in theory, no, because the Republicans or the Supreme Court will just say, sorry, that one's an exemption to the rules that we created. Your religion does not matter. Only conservative Christianity matters. Like, they'll always figure out a way to make it benefit them and nobody else.